Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of Plugged In with Jay. However, we are going to give it another twist to my old school days. And coming up in the season, the Fantasy Football Plug podcast, I've got a very special guest with me today, Mr. Mike Clay. How are you, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Free agency. We're recording this in the early stages of free agency, so very busy, but it's exciting. It's an exciting time of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But thank you so much for being on the show, man. I appreciate all your patience. I know so many things have been going on. We've had to reschedule multiple times. So we'll make this quick because I know you're a busy man, okay?
All right, you got it, my friend.
All right. Here we go. So just some general questions, man. You are a staple in the fantasy football community. The winner of the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Award in 2013 for most accurate preseason player rankings. I mean, that's impressive, man. That's impressive. How long have you been playing fantasy football?
Oh man, I remember my first league when I was a kid playing with my dad, and I did the scoring, so I had to get the newspapers on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. Sometimes you wouldn't get the Monday Night Football box score till Wednesday, so I remember doing it all the way back when I was really young. So it's been a long time, but I've been really into it competitively since probably college, right? So about 15 years or so until I really dove full on in. I played for a while, then started to kind of just, get more into it in terms of doing my own projections and that kind of thing. And the ball kind of rolled from there.
Sure. Awesome, man. Okay. What made you decide to get into the profession? I know that you've done analytics, things like that. What made you decide to go straight for fantasy football? Have you always wanted to do that professionally?
Look, if you told me a little over a decade ago, I'd be a full-time ESPN employee doing fantasy football and NFL coverage for a living, I don't know if I would have bought that. I didn't really know what my path would be growing up, but I was always into sports. I mean, growing up, I was always the nerd with the notebooks, writing down stats and, pausing Sports Center during MLB spring training where they used to show the projected starting lineups on the right side. We didn't really have as advanced internet back then. So, I was always keeping track of all that stuff. So, people who knew me, adults when I was a kid are not surprised. They always knew I was addicted to sports and loved the coverage. I used to write letters to GMs and coaches and scouts and coordinators and all that fun stuff. So I've always been into it. I'm not surprised I'm in the industry, but certainly doing what I do now is a dream come true.
Awesome, man. What steps did you take to get where you are today?
Yeah, certainly a lot. My obsession with sports is big, but that my path to ESPN included an insane amount of man hours. I think I'm an example that that old adage of you can do whatever you want in your life. I think that's true, but it has to be something you love, right? You can't just be like, well, I want to be a millionaire, and it just happens. You have to work to get there, right? So. And you have to love it. You have to like doing it. If I didn't enjoy projections and stats research and the nerdy stuff and the hard work behind the scenes that goes into it, I would have done something else. I'm just not that person by nature. It's just something that I love doing. And instead of getting done, my day job out of college and just, laying around playing video games or doing whatever it is people do, this was my hobby, it was my hobby. Football was my hobby. I liked studying it. I enjoyed writing and doing the research. And, I played my fair share of video games too. I'm not saying I didn't do any of that, but, I enjoyed this as a hobby. And that was really the key. It didn't feel like doing two full-time jobs, even though the workload was there. But over time, it just developed into something where you build your name up and you build a reputation as a hard worker and somebody knows what they're talking about. And that catches the attention of people. And I've seen other people do the same thing. And in a shorter amount of time, people can come out of nowhere, start doing unique work, posting it on Twitter, interacting with other minds in the industry. And before you know it, they're a name everybody knows in the industry. Anyone can honestly do it if they put that work in, do something unique, and they're, a good person. As long as you're not a jerk, you can walk this path as well.
Right. Absolutely. That's great advice. Don't be a jerk. So
that's important.
So you are well known for your innovative statistics and data in the fantasy football community. How much time actually goes into those statistics?
It's nonstop. I mean, I'm updating them now. It's year round. Once the season ends, I start prepping for the next season. I pull out the unrestricted free agents, add back the injured players, and I always have depth charts updated for offense, defense, offensive line, kickers, punters, you name it. Always updated. There's transactions pretty much every day of the year in the NFL, and I'm always tweaking. And then I'll spend time working on the model, upgrading for trends. Like last year, there's a lot more scoring in the NFL that needs to be reflected in the 2021 projections. So it's always a work in progress. It's always a living thing that I've kept updated for probably about a decade now, since I first built my first projection model. So it's just always alive, I'm always chipping away at it. And that's especially the case, of course, right now with free agency very, very active.
Right. Yeah, it's a grind, man. I don't do quite as much in depth as you do, man. But fantasy football and everything normally takes a lot of my time. My wife loves to talk about how much time it takes, so I can't imagine how much you put in. So every year y'all have the 24-hour fantasy marathon. I love it. I try to make sure I catch that every single year, especially at the very end of it where y'all do the draft together. That's something I love watching y'all do. What kind of draft strategy are you planning on implementing in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can give you the easy answer of take the best value on the board, but that's really the truth of it. A lot of times people go into drafts with specific players they want, and they'll reach for those players. And I've always been a value drafter where if a guy starts falling a round or two past where they should be coming off the board, you can bet if I'm coming up before you in the draft, they're not getting you. I'm going to take that player. It's that simple. If you pass on value plays like that, you end up with a disadvantage by the time the draft is over. And again, once in a while, that player you reached on that you love, maybe they hit and it's a home run and it pays off in the long run. Or that season. But in the long run, if you value-based draft, you're going to have a lot of success. So we'll see how the board falls. I think people are going to be all over running backs again this season. Especially because you have a lot of second-year running backs, and there'll be a couple rookies as well coming in that people are going to be really obsessed with. So I think you'll see a ton of running backs in the first round or two. You'll see a little bit of waiting at the tight end spot aside of Kelsey and wide receiver, because that's getting deeper than ever. And of course, people know to wait at the quarterback position for the most part. So I'll probably follow that path as well. I don't think you have to be overly cute to win. You just have to make sure you're picking the best values and not crushing yourself in the early rounds with reaches on players who just aren't proven or are just improperly valued.
Right. Absolutely. And you're talking about the wide receiver depth with Drew Brees retiring. What do you think about Mike Thomas?
Yeah, I'm worried for sure. I think that if Jameis Winston does win that job, he'll be okay. We've seen Mike Evans, Chris Godwin have a lot of success with. We know he's not afraid to push the ball down the field and throw up them YOLO balls. We love that in fantasy. So he should be fine. Winston, of course, is re-signed an incentive-laden contract with the Saints. So he's looking like the favorite to start, but Taysom Hill will be involved as well. And look, if Taysom's in there, they're going to run more. I'd be a little more nervous, but at the same time, Taysom Hill just force-fed the ball to Michael Thomas when he was the quarterback last season. So that's good news as well. If he has a 30% target share, it's not going to really matter who the quarterback is. He's still going to put up borderline wide receiver one numbers, if not more. So again, we'll see how that plays out over the next couple of months. But for now, I think he's probably best valued as a borderline wide receiver one with upside.
Right. Absolutely. I've got a question for you from my boy Smitty with the Fantasy Football Show. He was curious about what you think about the Arizona, like what's happening with Arizona. Like he figures it's mostly fan implemented, fan based. Like they're trying to just put some rumors out there that they're even thinking about possibly giving Kyler in a first for Watson. How ridiculous is that to you? It's kind of ridiculous. That
actually leads me to something else, which is this time of the year, you have to be careful who you're listening to. You see a lot of rumors and reports of people, and this may not be that situation, but just trying to get attention, trying to get followers. There was a rumor yesterday somebody threw out there, just fabricating a DJ Chark trade rumor to Baltimore for Orlando Brown. And the owner of the Jags actually commented, a friend of mine, Tony Khan, commented on that and kind of derailed that quickly. And it doesn't even make sense. Like if you're gonna be that guy and make up trade rumors, at least be competent and make up something that makes sense, right? Like it doesn't make sense. That trade makes no sense. I'm not going to get into the details of why, but it didn't add up on paper anyway.
Right.
And certainly the Kyler one does not either. Even if you're Arizona and you think, all right, maybe Deshaun Watson is a little better than Kyler Murray. I mean, why would you give up a first round pick to? It doesn't make sense. So of course that's not going to happen.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, he was saying they're more fan driven, so I just kind of figured I'd throw that out there. He was curious of what you thought of how ridiculous that would be. All right, my man. So you were talking about the rookies. Are there any rookies that you're looking at that you think will be pretty boom for fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at the running backs at the top this year, right? I think that's always the key in fantasy. The running backs are always that are picked in the first round, maybe the second round, are the guys who are most likely to make an impact in fantasy. So Travis Etienne of Clemson, Javonte Williams, North Carolina, Najee Harris, Alabama. Expect those guys to go at the end of the first or in the second round of the draft. And if that happens, they're probably going to be on a team that's running back needy, which would position them with a pretty sizable role as a rookie. So those guys for sure. Maybe Trevor Lawrence in the second half of the season can make some noise. Kyle Pitts may be the exception to the rule at tight end. Tight ends usually take a while to get going, but that guy is basically a wide receiver that's going to be, a tight end in fantasy. So he can make noise as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. And of course, the top wide receivers will somewhat depend on landing spot, but there's certainly a lot of talent there as well.
Right. And last but not least, do you have any tips for anyone new to fantasy football this season?
Tips. Yeah, I mean, I think I covered a little bit about that, a little bit of that earlier with, being smart when you're drafting, but being active, is the other part of it throughout the year. You don't draft and you're done. I mean, maybe you just got lucky, and everybody you pick just has a breakout season and you don't have to do much and you just coast to a championship. That's possible, but odds are if you're in a league that's somewhat competitive, that's not gonna fly, right? Your roster at the beginning of the season isn't going to look a lot like the one at the end of the season because you're going to have to be busy on waivers and find breakout players. Because look, you say you get running back, and you get two running backs and they struggle. Let's say it's Miles Sanders and Joe Mixon last season. You may not be able to survive that normally, but if you were active and you picked up, Cam Akers, who someone else dropped at midseason, or maybe you were quick to James Robinson and got him early, you can overcome that. You're probably still in good shape or your other positions, and you just fill those spots at running back. Or maybe your running back stay healthy and you got James Robinson, and that's what pushes you over the top and gets you a championship. So you have to stay active, be on Twitter, whatever it is. You have alerts for news, just stay up on everything and keep working that roster all season long. You do that, and you're well on your way to competing year in and year out.
Right, absolutely. That's what I tell anybody who ever asks me any kind of tips or something. What I've always realized is you don't win a fantasy championship in your draft. It's always about hitting the waiver wires, always making sure that you get the alerts. Yeah, absolutely. Great advice, man. Okay, well, Mr. Mike Clay, I appreciate your time, sir. I know you're a busy man, so I'm going to go ahead and call it the day.
All right, sounds good, my friend. Good talking.
Mike, it was a pleasure, man.
Yep, always fun. Have a good one.
Sir.